DDG episode 199. My name is Dave, and I'm joined by Michael.
Dave, that's really close to 200. I believe Randy just popped up in the Twitch chat being like 4 years, and it was 200 episodes later.
Today is November 1st, so we are officially 4 years old today. So
hey, look at us. I didn't buy you anything, Dave.
Yeah, I didn't get you anything.
Didn't get you anything. Nothing. What anniversary is that?
Well, you recommended that Humble Bundle thing, so we'll just
yeah.
I will be
my
getting
gift
that,
is you spending money.
It's $15 for like 15 games. It's okay.
Yeah. What is the 4-year anniversary gift?
PS5s.
It's fruit or flowers. I'm fine.
Oh jeez. So like can you buy me like an edible arrangement? Like not edibles.
I mean, it's legal in Illinois. I don't know what the Detroit or Michigan is. Yeah. Isn't there like a stone thing that people do? I don't know.
Stone or stone?
Both. Yeah. But apparently all you get is an apple, Dave.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Hang on one second. That's exactly like
Dave broke.
No. Just messing with stuff that I haven't quite figured out since I switched some interface stuff. So we'll have to see if that makes any difference. So all right.
We'll see.
So we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that posts every Thursday, 6 a.m. Eastern time on podcast services, as well as apparently YouTube music that we're working on.
On YouTube for sure. YouTube music, yeah, apparently that's a little bit of a broken system.
So we're working on some kinks on YouTube. If you subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/digitaldaysgaming, you can watch the show, and I'm putting that in air quotes, as a replay of the show, because it just kind of takes our logo and puts it on the screen, and it has our audio, which is kind of nice for maybe some people that tend to use YouTube in the background of their computers or anything like that, as well as we are live streaming the show on YouTube and Twitch now with
which does get archived automatically.
Yes.
So you'll see double up on some episodes if you follow us on YouTube.
And it sounds like apparently, as Michael's done a little bit of digging, that Google Music is being retired eventually and being replaced by
Google Podcast is being retired eventually into YouTube Music sometime next year.
Yeah. So there'll definitely be some changes, as well as uploading 195 or whatever it is, 220 individual pieces of content to YouTube. Not uploading them individually, but tagging them correctly and making the things move into the right buckets is proving to be a little bit more mundane than we expected. So
yeah, I have my Saturday sorted now because I got organized episodes. So.
Yeah. But so there are various ways that you can watch us now. There are various ways that you can listen to us. In both of those, we would love for you to subscribe or follow or promote any of those ways, as we're trying to make ourselves as easily accessible as possible across the internets. So sharing the show with your friends, anybody else. We know that Twitch sometimes is blocked at certain areas, and that YouTube is not, because YouTube is used as an educational format as well. So that also helps with that. So you can ideally share the show, tell your friends, just to get some more listeners, as we are getting ready to ramp into over 200 episodes, as well as over 4 years old, and going into 2024. There are multiple things that we have planned, as well as trying to probably kick off our short form content again. Now that I think that there are more things, as I'm getting more comfortable with plugins, that it helps with that process. So of making short form content. So we're all about getting out as much content as we can as easily as possible, because we both have jobs and lives and we want to play video games. So, but we also love talking to each other, as well as talking and interacting with you guys in the community. So with that in mind, everything is linked in the show notes, live on Twitch, twitch.tv/digitalgames, Digital Days Games. Damn. Twitch.tv/digitaldaysgaming.
I know you're going to have to add youtube.com/digitaldaysgaming.
We have a Facebook group. We have a Discord. All of those things are linked in the show notes for you to check out, as well as if you subscribe and turn notifications on either YouTube or Twitch, when we do go live, it will let you know that we are live, and you can come and hang out with us. So anyway, we're going to get into the news. We have some good, bad, and ugly news.
Yeah. We were got to... It moves on a scale. I threw some positive stuff in the middle of that, or before it gets bad. But yeah, we're gonna go from good to worse, depending on how you see things. The first thing is Xbox put out charts of how they're reorganizing their corporate structure, which is surprisingly funny because we got some predictions correct on how things would break out the last time we talked about like how the future is going to look for Xbox after Pete Hines left. The first big news is Matt Booty will now see his role expanded to the role of Game Content Studios president, which now includes ZeniMax. Though ZeniMax will still operate as what they call a limited integration entity, led by Jamie Leder now. Well, so basically it means that they're still going to let Bethesda kind of do its own thing, but they're kind of pulled in just a little bit more than what they were previously. Sarah Bond has been promoted to the full president of Xbox, so now Sarah Bond is in charge of everything from software to hardware to services and all that stuff, which probably makes her the most powerful woman in gaming now.
I was gonna say that's super cool that she's that title that she has, that she's essentially the face of Xbox behind Spencer. Like Phil Spencer is in charge of Microsoft Gaming, I think is technically the term.
Yeah, he's CEO of Microsoft Gaming, but the face of Xbox is now Sarah Bond, which kind of makes sense. She joined in 2017 and has been pushed up in terms of like being a presenter, handling like their own like press conference sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing this isn't too surprising. I think it's generally a good move because of what we've seen from her in the past. Bobby Kotick is listed as the head of Activision Blizzard still, though we know when the deal closed that
interim.
He's interim basically until 2023. We don't have word on who's going to replace Bobby Kotick, but chances are it might end up being Matt Booty since he's now kind of in charge of everything. Though he'll probably have like an underling, which will probably be the head of Blizzard if that person doesn't leave. And then everyone will still answer to Phil Spencer, who will remain as Microsoft Gaming CEO. But this now just kind of sets, the lineup that we could probably see at like press conferences. I don't think Phil Spencer's going away anytime soon in terms of being like the official face of Xbox, but definitely isn't going to be the one doing all the heavy lifting anymore in terms of being that front person. And Dave, I mean, this is just kind of what we expected in terms of how things were going to shake out.
Yeah, I mean, they're essentially building a new flowchart with the Activision Blizzard merge or purchase. They're just making a new flowchart, and with more studios means more positions of people needing to oversee other things. So Phil can't do it all. I mean, and not that he was doing it all before, but they've rapidly grown since he took over as Microsoft president of gaming, or whatever you want to call him. And as growth comes, new positions evolve, and this is how it is. So.
Yeah, no, and they definitely are, at least keeping everything within house in terms of like Xbox. Outside of Bobby Kotick, who will be gone.
It is awesome to see the promotion from within, to see a company truly grow their people from within and build on they obviously these people have the same goals and desires and aspirations that Phil Spencer has in order for him to put them in positions of power. So I think that's awesome, and instead of them trying to go and find that diamond in the rough or that needle in the haystack of somebody that's going to come in there and fix them, they're committed to their plan, and there are people in place that are committed to Spencer's plan. So.
They all seem like they're on the same page, which is something we can't say for PlayStation in terms of where they're at right now. So like Xbox definitely sees like a path, and they're not trying to stray from that path by like changing things up. I do think there's going to be some interest and intrigue with what they do with Activision Blizzard, but I have a feeling it's going to be a boring answer. Instead of hiring someone from the outside, they're just going to probably promote the Blizzard person, who I am blanking on their name. But they will potentially bring that person probably up a little bit, because Activision Blizzard, I think, is bigger than Bethesda, kind of, in terms of like, at least in terms of how much money it brings in. You probably need like a specific person to still handle that, kind of like what Pete Hines was doing, and what Jamie Leder is going to do as well. So there's changes happening over there, but it's kind of just them staying on the same track. We'll move on to the next story. Remedy, who recently released Alan Wake 2 to like crazy good
Yeah.
critical reception. They detailed the progress on the various projects. They're an independent studio, but they still have investors. So they revealed that there's going to be 2 Alan Wake DLC expansions happening next year, which is good to hear. Must mean they're pretty confident with sales to do the expansions. Max Payne 1 and 2 remakes are entering production readiness stage. So in between pre-production and actual production, it sounds like they're ready to go full on for Max Payne, which kind of makes sense with Alan Wake being finished and only expansions being worked on. Control 2 is at a proof of concept stage, and then Condor, the co-op game, is also in the production readiness phase. So it sounds like they might be a 2-game studio, and they're getting ready to go in there. I know some people are going to be kind of disappointed that Control 2 is still at a proof of concept stage, knowing that came out in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, I know for the most part you copy and paste these notes, or you.
Oh no, they're actually my own notes.
Okay, so is there a difference? Is there a difference between production readiness stage and production readiness phase?
Oh no, there isn't.
Okay,
That's
all
literally because I write my own notes
Okay.
and don't pay attention.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I said I know some of these you copy and paste, but I know some of them you also
Yeah.
type. While you interrupted me, but that's okay. So
Yeah. I'll fix that. But yeah, Dave.
that's like my bloodline right there, man. I have to read those words. Somebody named Michael has taught me words matter.
Yeah, sometimes they do, but stage and phase are pretty close. But Dave, we're always like intrigued by like the pipeline for some of these studios, and Remedy's kind of laying it out there of like, hey, this is what you should expect from us.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think that it's also like what we've talked about though is the concern of like, okay, that's what we're looking at right here is potentially 6 to 9 years.
Yeah.
Realistically, and then you start talking about too much, too fast, could lead to issues like we'll talk about in the next couple stories. Like when like it's just kind of it's weird. We went through this years ago with Platinum Games, and we went through this with Warner Brothers Montreal and Rocksteady of like when too much Batman trying to get too much built too fast. It's definitely a concern, and the first immediate concern is how long how long is too long and how long is not enough between releases and sequels. Like if it's Max Payne 1 and 2, which I would assume would come as like a combo pack, right? Like it would probably
or they're just gonna do like an epic saga thing,
right?
where it's
but they would
like
still come out around
thing.
the same time, right?
I would hope so, especially the way they're specifically talking about it. They don't seem to be talking about them as separate projects.
Right. And then we're led to believe that Condor is ahead of Control 2 based on
where it's at.
Where it's at. So now, like, if Control 2 is at the end of the 7 to 8 year window, like we're talking about almost that's a pretty big gap between Control 1 and Control 2.
Yeah, and that would be something that you'd have to worry. Though Remedy, at least, I believe that's why they're kind of doing their own cinematic universe in terms of like all the games are in the same universe. They might not like directly be connected, but they at least keep something there, some thread.
Yeah.
To keep people interested in. So you're gonna have to hope, that people can wait. I would probably say Control 2, depending on the scale of Max Payne 1 and 2, like at the earliest Control 2, maybe 5 years down the line.
Yeah.
Like at the earliest.
It's similar. Like the universe thing you're talking about, similar to what we've been hearing about the last couple weeks with Spider-Man 2, is that Insomniac has essentially confirmed that Wolverine is in the same universe.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if there is a part of Wolverine that possibly takes place in New York City with the New York City that they use for Spider-Man. Like,
and there's other excitement, spoilery things I could say about like things that are connected to Spider-Man 2.
Yep.
That gives me like excitement and hope. But
right.
that getting that confirmation from Insomniac that like they're in the same universe is kind of cool because we know the rules of the Spider-Man 2 universe. We know which characters exist in that universe, or the Insomniac Spider-Man universe.
Right.
We know certain characters exist based on like they have apartments and houses in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just not that I don't want to go down the Spider-Man 2 bandwagon. I was just using it as an example of Remedy essentially saying that whatever happens in Condor probably will have some type of impact on Control 2.
Yeah, and I want to say because there was another game that they were working on that wasn't really mentioned in their investor call that was like the multiplayer version of Control,
Yeah,
which I think might be Condor.
Condor, possibly. Yeah. So,
But there was another game that they didn't mention, which means it probably could have been shelved because it was announced before they like announced the Max Payne deal. So
yeah.
there might have been a chance that they're like, hey, we can't do all these games, and Max
Pump the
Payne
brakes,
is
baby.
Rockstar. Yeah, and Max Payne is Rockstar money. That's in partnership with Rockstar. Yeah. So I imagine they want to get it right for Rockstar, and Rockstar is probably just like, we'll throw some money at you and do what you can.
Yeah.
So like Max Payne, I believe there's Easter eggs for Max Payne in the Alan Wake series, but because they don't own it, they haven't fully brought it into the Remedy verse.
I love the roadmap though. I mean, because now there's no question what Remedy's doing.
Yeah, and you can look at this easily and be like, okay, we're seeing Condor before we see Max Payne 1 and 2, or we're seeing them around the same time.
And I love the roadmap too, because like we don't really know what like Ninja Theory's plan is after Hellblade 2. Like we don't know what Naughty Dog's. Yeah. We realistically, outside of factions, or if it does or doesn't exist, we don't really know what Naughty Dog's working on. We have no idea what Sony Ben's doing. We have no idea what Sony Santa Monica's doing right now post God of War. So like in terms of like, I understand that some of that's the allure and they don't know what they're doing yet or not, but I mean, at least for the most part, like we know what Remedy's doing. Like and it's not going to be left up to question. And when people are like, well, what happened to Remedy? Oh well, they Google. Oh, they just released Max Payne 1 and 2. Oh, okay, so next thing we should hear about is Condor, and then after we hear about Condor, we should hear about Control 2. Cool.
Yeah, and then hopefully within 2 or 3 years they'll do this again. And I think it's very important, especially for them to remain independent. You need to have roadmaps like this, not only for investors but for your fan base. There are people that are Remedy fans, probably first more than some of these games, and you want to keep them like supporting your current project so they can see the next project. So it's important for investors to give you money, but also to make sure the players are still engaged in what you're producing. So it's very important they do this. I hope more companies kind of do this, especially independent companies. We see this all the time where independent companies will release a game, it's like a relatively big hit, and then they kind of go away for several years as they work on stuff. And especially if you're going for the scale, the size and scope that Remedy's doing, you need to have roadmaps.
Well, just from an independent standpoint of like of independent studios that I enjoy, like I really want to know what Drinkbox is doing right now. Like post Guacamelee, post Severed, post Nobody Saves the World. Like they're a studio that they're in terms of indie studios, they're right on the cusp of I'm gonna play whatever you make and release. Just because of how much I've enjoyed their games already. Similar to, I think that I can't think of the studio name right now, but Hades and Transistor and
not Supermassive, Supergiant.
Yeah, Supergiant games. Yeah, like you're probably at the point where, for the most part, whatever Supergiant releases, you're gonna check out.
Yeah, and it's important for those studios too, because like the Drinkbox company and Supergiant, they're not quite household names to where we might forget about them kind of for like a year or two between releases, and then they announce something, we're like, oh shit, I like Guacamelee, I like Nobody Saves the World.
Well, they do it in their trailers again. They like it'll be whatever they show again, they'll be like, from the makers of Nobody Saves the World, and I'll be like, oh yeah. Like,
but prior to that, you're not really thinking about them until that next trailer comes out, and then you get the flush of like nostalgia of like,
Emu's kind of moving up there. If Emu starts doing something again, I'll be like, oh, they makers of Shredder's Revenge. Oh, okay, you have my attention. Like, let's see what this is. So,
and so it's something I definitely would want more companies to do. It makes sense why some of the smaller ones don't do this, because you never know what your next project's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're trying to do things the scope Remedy's doing, that this is absolutely vital, and it is appreciated as people that like to talk about video game news more than they play them. All right, this next update was going to catch some people off guard. It's a Gran Turismo update. We don't really talk about this, but I thought it was kind of interesting just because we're always like wondering about like the Gran Turismo like player base and how well it's doing. Because we have some people in the community that like really enjoy it, and they're like, why don't you guys talk about this? And we've just been kind of like, we don't play it, and also we don't hear about people playing it too often. But Gran Turismo 7 is getting a free update this week that they're claiming is their biggest update, and it sounds pretty hefty. It's going to add 4-player split screen, seven new cars. I should probably scratch that out. Seven new cars, AI assistance in quick race, and then a new snow track. And the new snow track will work in VR because I forgot Gran Turismo was a VR game.
Yeah.
As well, which it seems like more people were excited about racing in snow in VR, which as someone who's in Chicago, I'm just like, okay.
It's my drive to work.
yeah, that was yesterday in Chicago on Halloween.
That was this morning.
Yeah. So Gran Turismo 7 apparently saw a boost in the player base and in sales with the release of the Gran Turismo movie this past summer. I believe some data, like we didn't get sales data, but player base data, it was like 13% increase in the player base in terms of like who's online, because I guess you can see that when you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all 13% increase in people playing the game when that movie came out. And then the last time PlayStation touted official numbers was back in November when it estimated that it sold over 6 million copies. So I would imagine the movie has definitely helped if they saw an increase in the player base at that time. And also, did the Blu-ray come out yet? Or is it coming out? I would have to look.
I think it's hitting some streaming services though.
Yeah. But I'm guessing it's going to be very healthy for Gran Turismo once it starts hitting streaming services and once it's out on Blu-ray. Wow, there's some theaters in Chicago that are still playing it, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, so Gran Turismo seems to be doing pretty healthy. That they're able
buy it
to
on Amazon Prime.
Okay, so it's at the buy level, not
available
the
4K
level.
Ultra HD at digital purchase for $25 at Amazon Prime.
Okay, so it's not fully on services yet. But yeah, no. Gran Turismo seems to be doing well. I like when I see games get big free content updates.
Yeah.
I miss that. But it's good to see that. I saw a lot of people that I didn't know played Gran Turismo that were super excited for this content update.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard really good reviews of the movie in terms of like just a movie itself, and then any marketing is good marketing. Any way to get the Gran Turismo name out there again in non-gamer eyes for people people that play games that maybe forgotten that Gran Turismo still existed as a franchise that's on, because they stopped playing racing games years ago or whatever, and they get exposed to it again. Like that's great. I kind of put Gran Turismo in the tier above the MLB The Show as just their consistent franchises that they release, and it does well every time we've been to an event that it's at. There's always a lot of interest around it. There's always big marketing around it. Cars, full size cars, racing in a car, playing the video game. So that you can definitely tell that there's a good amount of money behind it. But it's just that I don't know. Like it's definitely I kind of equate it to a little bit of like football, soccer in the rest of the world. It's just bigger. Racing is just bigger outside of North America, than in North America. So
yeah, it's one of those things where like I used to play Gran Turismo a lot, but I would always wait for it to hit like the greatest hits label before I played it. Like I was never a day one Gran Turismo person. I usually waited till that ugly red box or that green box would come out for Gran Turismo. Which made me think, like, did PS4 have a greatest hits?
I think PS4 Classics or something like that. Or I think it had the red stripe on it.
Okay, yeah, but it's not the full red box that the PS3
No,
had.
I just think it had the blue box with the red stripe directly underneath it.
Yeah, I'm like making Dave Google stuff because I'm just like, was there a greatest hits box art? Because I was like, I wonder what the PS5 one's going to be eventually when it happens. Now I'm looking as well. Like
PlayStation Hits.
Oh yeah,
called
PlayStation Hits.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's still an ugly red box. Look at that.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the spine is blue.
Okay, yeah, it's some of the box art when you look at Google Images. It's like,
I guess I'm looking at Google Images too, but for the most part, I haven't seen the spine of it yet. But like that Uncharted with the PlayStation Hits, Resident Evil with the PlayStation Hits, So
I look forward to seeing what the PS5 greatest hits is going to be. It's probably just going to be a red label again. But yeah, that's some positive PlayStation news. Let's get into, I guess, negative PlayStation news. It's kind of, if you ask Bungie, this has nothing to do with PlayStation. But it looks like, what does it look like? It's official. Bungie has been hit with layoffs. I'm going to just go through the notes that I have, Dave, and then we'll go through this all over again. There's a lot of stuff that I have left off the notes because there's just a ton of stuff coming out. But Bungie have laid off dozens of employees. It reported with reports saying it's over 100 employees. I believe I saw 8%. the number
Correct.
floating around.
Yeah.
The news came after Bungie reportedly missed their yearly revenue goal by over 45%, which is a scary high number. The news of the layoffs took to the internet swiftly, with employees from Bungie from various departments reporting their employee status. Bungie apparently, reportedly, allegedly asked employees to not communicate about the layoffs in the company communication channels, as a possible attempt to prevent people from finding out which departments were hit and how badly they were. Which, if that's true, that's impossible to manage. Like, you can
Right.
go in a Slack channel and delete stuff, but for the most part, people will find out what departments were hit. Though with the work from home stuff, I wonder if it's just a little bit more difficult to figure that out.
Especially when the laid off people lost access to their stuff
Yeah,
before they were told they were laid off.
it's
Which,
basically
if
people just going in departments being like, "Yeah, I'm the only one here," or "I only
yeah,
see 3 people still in this channel." Uh, the longtime Bungie composer was one of the people laid off. Basically, just wiped Bungie from their profile and just switched it to Gone
mm-hmm,
Fishing. They had been with Bungie, I think, independently through most of the Halo stuff, and then were officially Bungie's composer through all of Destiny.
mm-hmm.
So technically, very long time Bungie employee. Um, Bungie followed this news internally by delaying the Final Shape DLC. I think I got that right.
You did.
The
That's
Final
fine.
Shape DLC from February 2024 to June 2024, and delaying Marathon to 2025. Bungie reiterated the layoffs were Bungie's decision and not Sony's, after there was some confusion that Sony, set aside $1 billion to retain Bungie employees when they first acquired Bungie. Bungie was reportedly been stressing over the last couple months about Destiny 2's player base, which is apparently hitting all-time lows, and the DLC, the Final Shape, having bad pre-order numbers so close to its original February release date. Dave, you are the resident Bungie
Yeah.
expert. Take us through your thoughts to this, because I'm sure you had a lot of
Yeah. So
thoughts.
a couple things that I'm still a little bit confused about. So let's just make a couple things clear. Like Bungie themselves has not come out and publicly said that the Marathon or Final Shape is delayed. They have not. They have not said
Yeah,
that
it's
at
just
all.
internally
Yeah.
delayed is what the
However,
stuff
Jason
about.
Schreier has said so, and I think Jason Schreier is like 99 for 100. So,
Yeah,
I
and some internal documents did leak along
okay,
with it.
yeah.
So
As well as Bungie is being kind of ran through the ringer right now. But to be honest with you, and most of you know this about me, I do a I feel, I guess I do a very good job of separating business parts from entertainment parts. If you miss revenue by 45% heads are gonna roll. Like it's inevitable. Now, who came up with the 45? Who came up with the number that you hit 45% less of? Probably somebody that still has their job.
yeah,
And also that this is probably a number that you touted to Sony to get them to pay you all that money. And so I'm gonna get some of the negative out really quick of things that I'm personally a little annoyed about, and then stuff I'm seeing. They're building a massive expansion to their studio as well, which is costing millions of dollars. And so
yeah,
these people that lost their job, like, that sucks. And I want to preface all of this when I say that this sucks. Anybody, one person, 100 people, 50 people losing their job, like, it's awful. However, if that guy, this is the part that I struggle with, and I know when I say this, I sound like an arrogant like person, and I sound awful when I say this, and I'll preface this. If the composer is done making music for Destiny, they don't need to keep him not doing anything.
well, and
Like, I'm
yeah,
sorry, like, so however far in development Final Shape is or isn't, more than likely this guy's work is completed. And we've always talked about this with quality assurance or a project ending, whatever direction they're taking Destiny 2. And again, it's most of the stuff's come out like Destiny 3 is like not Destiny 3 is not a thing. Bungie has never said Destiny 3. They've said that this is the end of the Light and Darkness saga. Their marketing, their verbiage behind this is leading a lot of people to believe that Destiny is ending, and they're trying to then backtrack it that it's not. They are ending seasonal content. They're switching it to episodic content. But I'm not as concerned about the delay because Shadowkeep got delayed. Beyond Light got delayed, Witch Queen got delayed, Lightfall didn't get delayed, and Lightfall was trash, which is now making and having an impact on pre-orders. Lightfall campaign was trash, I'm sorry, which is now
Yeah.
giving an impact on pre-orders for the final shape because the community and the players feel that they've been burned by the last expansion, which is also causing their player base to dwindle right now. Even if I feel the seasonal content is the best that it's been, um, there's a massive problem of people like to get hooked by the expansions and by the story and by the campaign, and if it's not doing it, then they're not going to be pre-ordering the other stuff. I'm not concerned about the delay. What I'm concerned about is you're delaying your game 4 months and you laid off 8% of your workforce. That those two things don't equate to me.
Yeah,
Like how are you going to how much money are you going to lose from the delay? Are you then if the game's better, do you think you're gonna pick all that money back up from the sales of making the final shape what it's supposed to be, of the amount of payroll that you laid off? And then to your point in your bullet points in here, what did you do with the retention money?
Yeah, and there's a lot of controversy about the retention money.
Because it's reported that they're pulling stocks.
Yes.
And that's normal. Like, I mean, the business part of it, the nitty gritty corporate world that Bungie is that people don't like to hear is, oh, do I think that they purposely laid these people off on October 30th? I'm 50-50.
Mhm.
I don't think that was necessarily malicious. It might have been the end of a quarter, like a Sony quarter where they're crunching numbers, and or Bungie has their own numbers to crunch. The rumors are that Sony is telling Bungie to delay the game until June, which is then puts it into the next physical year, which I think is March or April for Sony. And Sony's kind of just throwing up 2023 as a loss for games as a service, physical year 2023.
Yeah.
So if you're led to believe that, however, I'm at the point of where I've been dissecting this Bungie acquisition since it happened, and everything has always been partnership and merger and acquisition, not a purchase. Yeah. Bungie stands on its own. They make their own decisions. They do their own things.
They had a little pie chart or a little flow chart, and Bungie was outside of that
chart. And they do their own things, and it's led to believe that Bungie is doing this. And yeah, you still have a business to run, and when you're down 45% in revenue, like you have a problem. And and it's been reported this week that Pete Parson came out and said like the right people are still in place for Destiny 2 and their future. But this is not doom and gloom. This is not Destiny's died. Destiny's dying, or Destiny might be dying, but Destiny is not dead, and Destiny is not going anywhere because right now it's the only thing that makes money for Bungie.
But it is one of those things where if they can't right the ship with the next DLC, I could see them being like.
I disagree because I understand what you're saying.
If your player base is still going, I think.
But if you're led to believe that what's came out today is that they brought Tarkov players into Bungie to play Marathon. And they brought like 20 or 30 of them in to play Marathon on a playtest, an NDA thing. And essentially at the end of that playtest, they asked them, if we were to release Marathon tomorrow, how many of you would play it? And none of them in the room raised their hands. None.
Yeah.
And Marathon is an extraction shooter, is believed to have been a battle royale that has turned to an extraction shooter as the market has changed, why they've been making the game. And the reason why I say that I don't think Destiny could die, because if Marathon fails, then they have to go back to what has made them money for the last decade.
Here's what I would say. I think Destiny would change significantly in terms of like that's when they just emergency slap 3 on a box.
Yeah. If Marathon in this Project Gummy Bears, which is what it's called, which is stupid.
Yeah.
If both of those don't do well, yes, they will cut bait and make a Destiny 3, 100%.
Yeah, because that's the only way to bring the people that you've lost from expansion to expansion.
Yeah, there is
an expansion's not going to say Bungie.
Correct. Well, and I also think the final shape will, and other content creators have said this. I'm not sitting there taking claim of it and making a big thing or whatever. I am in lockstep with some of the other content creators are talking about this week with Destiny, is that final shape is probably the last named expansion that we see in the Destiny 2 franchise. They're going to pivot to these episodes, and they're probably going to name these episodes and bring them out every 4 to 6 months in small bite size, bigger than seasons, but not quite as big as an expansion, if that makes sense. Pieces of content as they are running and hoping to get the $20 out of you every 4 to 6 months versus.
Which I think they will only go down that path as far as like Marathon can take them in terms of like their next.
Well,
game.
It ultimately depends on whatever this third project is. Like,
yeah.
I'm not naive. Do I think that Destiny 2 is going to exist in 3 more years? Not in the state it's in right now. No,
Yeah.
because we're getting another new destination in the final shape, the Pale Heart, inside the Traveler.
Sound like a Kingdom Hearts fan right
Yeah.
now with these names.
Yeah. But the problem is that Bungie has came out years ago and said, like, hey, we can't keep making this bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's hard and it doesn't fit and it's hard to maintain. It's hard to balance. And that's why they kind of vaulted some stuff away, which got about a lot of negativity around them.
But what if that vault was made out of glass and they can shatter it at
Yeah.
any time?
Yeah, I mean they pulled stuff back out of the vault.
Yeah.
And they've done a delicate job with it. And if I'm curious because I'm hearing stuff that like a lot of these people, when Parsons said this thing to them 2 or 3 weeks ago, that they were down in revenue and that everybody had to buckle down and do all this stuff, and then for the layoffs to happen, or that the people are like the developers are telling the higher ups, the managers at Bungie, of what they want to do in the game to help bring the players back, and they're being told no. Like, do I think that that's true, or do I think that's ill will? I don't know. Like, and that's the problem. Like, there's also the business manager part of me that says you don't need 5 community managers.
Well, so those are the layoffs. I hate to say it, but those are the ones that we kind of expected to happen when they were acquired. We saw this with Activision.
Yeah,
Blizzard,
but these aren't.
we saw
this. They've reiterated that, like, Sony didn't tell them to cut their community team.
No, I know they're saying that.
Sony didn't tell them to cut their publishing team. But from a business standpoint, you have a publisher in Sony right there. Like, why would you continue to self-publish?
And I think those are the type of layoffs that I think were always going to happen, because I'm sure PlayStation offers their services to Bungie of like, hey, we have a really good PR team if you want to borrow them,
or HR or recruiting or like,
yeah. And I guarantee Bungie, when you're down 45% on your revenue goals, are like, maybe we do move some of these departments to,
because the list of what I saw was not developers. It was not, it was not people.
It was varied, but they did hit like QA, I believe. QA always gets hit, which is just like the most baffling thing. But it was a lot of the community
but it's not
side.
Creative director. It's not sandbox thing. It's not server stability guys.
The composer is like the only one that like.
But I
and
just
even
feel
then,
like you've got that, like at a certain point in time, you got 11 years of music. How much new music do you need?
No, you need new music every time, Dave. Like you don't like music, so like you don't care about that, but you need good music. But I will say that it is a luxury for a studio to have an in-house composer.
Yeah.
You might have a music person or an engineer in-house, but to have someone dedicated to just composing music. And he might be upset
that he got laid off, and I get it. Maybe you had a job for 10 years, 11 years, and you got laid off, but it might have been one of those things where like, hey, in 18 months we might need you again, but right now we got to cut payroll because we're down 45%.
No, and most likely the next Destiny expansion that happens after the final shape, they'll probably be like, hey, and we worked with this new contractor who is this famed composer we worked with for however many years. So like it sucks that like the thing that made Bungie special is the fact that they did have an in-house composer, that they did have like this team that's been together for so long. So seeing those pieces picked apart is what makes, I think, a lot of people angry.
But I feel like some of those are luxury pieces, though, that they
100%,
that they're realizing that they can't have the luxury of right now.
Which is crazy because they were just acquired by a company, but that also just shows you the struggle of
or what's in the deal. No,
and I think that's what happens is like PlayStation's like, you are independent as long as you hit your goals.
Yep.
And when they don't hit their goals, they have to do these moves to potentially
they came and knocked on the door. They came to their boss, to their owner, and said, hey, I need some help. And they said, okay, open your books. Well, we don't want to. Well, I'm not going to help you. Okay. Now they open the books. What the hell is that?
Or like, we'll help you, but you need to get your head count under this. Because that's brutal business shit.
Yep.
That happens with even any company you love does this. I have a question, Dave. With Destiny, where it's at in terms of missing its revenue by 45%, that's not a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care that Destiny 2's been out for like 8 years or whatever. Or how long? 2017?
Yeah. 3 years, 14, 15, 16, September 2017, yep.
Yeah. So Bungie do you think there's panic with them in terms, not panic, but you think there's a little bit of worry, which is why they wanted to tighten the ship, where the person that acquired you, Jim Ryan, no longer is there. The person who acquired you for games as a service for your monetization skills is no longer there. Can play a part in terms of like, let's tighten up the ship a little bit just so we can show the new overlords.
I get what you're saying, but I don't really know if they would make that decision in 4 or 5 weeks since we've heard about the Ryan.
No, but you know this
transition,
stuff
so.
is internally like
I think
known
it
before
really
that.
it really just
It
depends
plays a
on,
part.
right. I just think it really depends on what's in the deal, like what they can or can't do. Because Monday morning, like this whole narrative changed in the 48 hours. Like Monday morning at like or Eastern time, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, like as Bungie was reporting to work Pacific time, you started hearing these rumblings and you started seeing more and more and more and more and more, and all the headlines were Sony tells Bungie to trim fat.
Yeah.
Sony continues layoffs in their gaming structure, and then throughout the day on Monday and Tuesday morning, you were starting to find out a little bit more of like Sony didn't tell them to do anything, like this was Bungie. So and I honestly feel that Schreier would have told us if it was Sony, like, and he
wouldn't have held that info back,
right. So like I really, and this kind of goes into, because I was having conversations with some people of like, I was still struggling with on Monday afternoon, like how can Sony tell Bungie what to do when Bungie produces Destiny 2, Bungie's producing Marathon, like, because if Sony was producing Marathon, it wouldn't be on Xbox. I'm sorry, like
yeah,
it
no,
wouldn't.
yeah.
I know you and I are lockstep with this, and then we find out more and more and more that and it's Wednesday night, and so it's only been like 48 hours plus, maybe 55, 60 hours since all of this has really happened. And we talked about it before. Most of these people can't publicly say what's really going on because they want another job in the game industry, or they want to eventually return to Bungie in a year, 2 years, or 3 years.
Yeah, especially the people that move to Bellevue, I think is where they're at.
Yeah.
So
but it's just like it makes me want to see the deal even more, because like, yes, as an independent oddity, like this would have happened at Bungie, whether they're independent or owned. And at the same time, like Bungie, I feel, has enough pride and has had enough issues with Microsoft and Activision that they're you know what, we're gonna fix it ourselves. Like this is like we're going to fix this.
But what I mean about the Jim Ryan thing, if they might feel even more so that they need to fix it themselves because potentially their biggest like cheerleader is no longer with the company.
I just want to know where the money went, like where the employee retention went, and
apparently how the employee retention stuff worked is some money was put aside and given to all the employees, but then the rest of it was going to be spread out over the course of the next couple years through Sony stock. And that's where a lot of the controversy is coming from. Is basically they told people at Bungie, the longer you stay at Bungie post-acquisition, the more money you'll get over time. And by firing those people, that money now that would have went to those employees over the next like 5-10 years, however long it was, is just going to go into Bungie's war chest.
Yeah.
Which is unfair, but that's how shitty business is.
Yeah, every corporation does the same thing.
Yeah.
So Bungie's not alone in this.
So it also, if you want to be full on devil's advocate, evil, type of person, you can imagine that Bungie's like, we can get that retention money and put it in our war chest that would have went to the 100 employees to help us get through.
But at the same time, that's not going to fix their 45 million or their 45%.
No, it's not going to fix
drop,
their thing, but it could balance a little bit.
Let's be honest. Let's be realistic. They're going to see a bigger revenue drop with a 4-month delay. Because they can't supplement another season. Like they just laid off 100 people. Yeah. Well, we've had it when we had the excuse me. When
How do you feel that time with less people?
Right. Bungie delayed it, Witch Queen, from November to February, and we had a 7.5-month season. It was brutal. It was awful.
That's with a fully staffed Bungie.
But Witch Queen was phenomenal. And then 12 months later, you got Lightfall, which was not phenomenal. And now you've got Final Shape, which is looking good, but people are feeling very burned by Lightfall. And it's this give and take. There's no in between with Destiny and their player base. It's either hot or it's cold, and it's cold or it's hot.
And I think this kind of shows you like how independent Bungie actually is in terms of. You would imagine the only reason Marathon is delayed is because they're going to pull the people off Marathon to help with the content for Final Shape, just to get it through the door. And in order to do that, they would have had to go to PlayStation and go, hey, we're one of your marquee games for next year, and you don't really have a lot of marquee games lined up for next year. We need to push it another year. And PlayStation had to approve it. And if it was probably PlayStation's decision, they probably would have been like, fuck that Destiny DLC. Like, we need Marathon. So PlayStation is showing confidence in Bungie to be like, you know what you're doing.
Right.
So you can delay one of our marquee games, Marathon.
And now this could be a 3-month delay for Marathon, though. If Marathon was tentative September, still, October, like getting it out of the holiday season still is bad. But if it's led to believe that the the Tarkov, I believe that the Tarkov players, because maybe that's the player base that they're going after. If the rumors are true, they had no Destiny PvP players, content creators brought in to play Marathon. They strictly brought Tarkov streamers in. And I don't know enough about extraction shooters. I never played Tarkov.
It's popular with a very niche audience, which is a baffling thing of just like, do you want to? But
I just don't know why you wouldn't bring, I guess one of the guys I listened to on the way home from work today was like, you bring one of your top tier Destiny PvP players in to play Marathon, and he comes out and says, oh, you decided to shit on Destiny 2 PvP to make that. To make Marathon, like that's what you're doing, and this is what it plays like. So I think that that could be some bad things around it. Do you think it's what? Do you think there's any validity to them delaying it out of physical 2023?
For
Sony, do you think Sony was telling them to delay it out of physical 2023, or Sony was okay with moving it to physical 24?
Physical 24.
Final Shape. I'm sorry. So Final Shape and Marathon coming out in physical year 24.
No, but that's the thing is like I would imagine PlayStation really kind of doesn't give a shit about the Destiny stuff. So I think they're fine with whatever happens with Destiny. I think their discussion would have been Marathon based.
Yeah, but the conversation around it is like they could have two gigantic either one gigantic expansion and one marquee live service game released in the same year, and talk about user base playing Sony games versus, let's be real. Like if Final Shape came out in February, you'd see a huge surge in February, and then by the end of March it'd be done. Like, because that's how it works. Other than your seasonal players, which you're gonna go right back down to your normal levels that you did like in August, September, and October, like we're in right now. Although they're lower now than normal. But so by the time their new year started, I think they do April 1st, right? March 1st, April 1st.
Something like that. Yeah. It varies from company to company. I know usually June is like sometimes the beginning.
I think Sony does like April or May. So
yeah,
then them saying, hey, our games as a service player base in 2024 is this much higher than 2023 when you didn't release a games as a service.
I mean, that could play a part in it. I also do really feel like PlayStation views Destiny as like just some weird little thing that Bungie has at this point, especially if revenue's down 45%. Like I would imagine.
Yeah, but it's 100% of their revenue though, down, up or down. It's 100% of Bungie's revenue.
No, I know, which is why they're more interested in like getting Marathon right, because companies don't. Bungie sticking with Destiny this long is very admirable for a studio to be that dedicated to it, regardless if it's 100% of the thing, because companies just want to move on to the next.
Yeah, but they have nothing else right now.
But they could have had other things, but they focused on.
Yeah, but I don't know if any of those other things, like we've talked about it before, like if they swung and missed, if they stopped if they stopped doing Destiny 2 after 3 years and tried to bring something out and it fell flat on its face, like Bungie could have been gone.
I just imagine PlayStation looks at Destiny like a fucking Olympic athlete with a cigarette addiction. Like they're like, you know what? They're almost perfect, but they just smoke, and that's what Destiny content is now for them. So I would imagine any discussions with Sony it was all Marathon based. And that could mean something else is lined up for PlayStation that they're comfortable with, like the big live service game being delayed. And especially when Jim Ryan was touting those numbers, if that's even the plan by PlayStation, we don't know.
Yeah.
If the live service stuff is even, there's been a lot of talk that it's not part of PlayStation's plans anymore now that Jim Ryan's gone. So it could have gone down to the point of like, oh, we don't care about having 12 live service games anymore. Just get Marathon right because we can't handle a miss. We only have Spider-Man 2 for the next like 6 months to a year. So please make sure Destiny, or not Destiny, a Marathon is a hit. So I'm kind of not fully serious with this question. Dave, if you're Naughty Dog, are you looking at that 45% revenue down and being like, huh, so you told us what to do with fucking factions?
No,
Like, do you think there's at least a part of that studio that's just like we were listening to them? Out of frustration, not out of like 100% seriousness.
I mean, maybe out of frustration, but at the same time, like, Naughty Dog hasn't been able to make a successful multiplayer game yet.
No, I know, yeah, 100%. But like,
So.
I wonder if like, because there was a lot of talk of like, hey, they're kind of like bringing Bungie to several different studios working on live service games. Like, I wonder if that may have stretched Bungie a little bit, because we don't know like the size and scope of like how those visits went and how much resources they ended up taking. But I wonder, because there are reports this week that a lot of people at PlayStation Studios are very upset with the live service direction that was happening over the last year or two. So I imagine if you're a PlayStation Studio and you have an executive you have an executive's ear, you're like, hey, are you sure you still want to go down a live service game? Because the king of live service is struggling right now.
Yeah, but I guess I would ask you a counter question of like, did Sony go to Bungie to ask them to buy Firewalk Studios? Did Sony go to Bungie and show them what Haven's making and say, like, should we buy these people? Like, did Sony give the
no, but
you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
your creme de la creme purchase of Bungie for the live service stuff that your intentions are, you're using them as an umbrella. You're using Bungie as an umbrella or as a safety net, and letting them do their own thing, but still taking their numbers and putting them in your profile, which is what was happening. And now those numbers are negative, and they're trying to say they're not their numbers.
Yeah.
Versus, like, whose fault is it going to be if Haven fails? Whose fault is it going to be if Firewalk's getting failed? Like, whose fault is it going to be if Factions gets canceled? Is it Bungie's fault?
No, I wouldn't say it's their fault. I would say, though, those studio acquisitions probably did also have in mind of like, cool, they have an idea for a multiplayer game, and we're picking up Bungie soon.
Mm-hmm.
So their idea can be incubated through the monetization wizards from Bungie, and then they can have like some synchronicity through those partnerships. So I imagine they didn't ask Bungie, hey, should we acquire these studios? They acquired those studios with the intention of having Bungie.
Yeah, I just it's you just can't let stuff live in a vacuum. Is Insomniac is Insomniac a lower tier studio because they release Fuse?
No, but you always bring up Fuse, and I was like,
okay, is Sony Santa Monica a worse studio because their sci-fi shooter got canceled?
Yeah, which apparently might still be in the works because Cory Barlog's working on something.
Is Ben bad because they got declined for Days Gone 2?
Yes. But yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
But I wonder if there's like a little bit of domino effect, especially when you're talking about like PlayStation studios that were against being live service studios, who were forced to do live service games, who are now like, do we really want to go down this path? Yeah. Because
I don't know. Are you going to question a Fortnite developer because Epic laid off 1,000 people?
I think you should, especially when they buy Bandcamp and a year later sell it at a loss because they're like, shit, we didn't know what we were buying.
Yeah.
So like you can question those moves,
or especially like Embracer, like we've been talking about Embracer Group. Like obviously they made catastrophic mistakes, or they were led to believe they were sold a bill of goods that wasn't there. And I think that part of this. Do I think that this 45% deduction of revenue is true? Yes, 100%. Do I think it was inflated to get Sony to buy them? 100%. Like
potentially, yeah.
So
but
what's the true
I would just
number?
imagine though, if you're at the PlayStation Studios and you were like arms crossed, like I don't want to do this live service game. If you see Bungie strongly right now, you might say like, hey, it's not too early for us to pivot to the idea why I joined PlayStation Studios. Which is single player content.
But at the same time, like I don't think that this means that Firewalk or Haven or any like Concord needs to change course or Haven needs to change course.
No, they're fine. I'm talking about like the Naughty Dogs. I'm talking about like Sucker Punch is apparently working on a multiplayer game. Like those studios that aren't traditionally multiplayer studios.
But I think Sucker Punch wants to though. They were trying to with Ghost of Tsushima. Like I don't.
They flirted with the idea, but I think they always kind of wanted to do still some single player stuff. So the idea that they might have pivoted to just a multiplayer game sounds a little like extreme for that. And Naughty Dog having to like get Naughty Dog looks bad right now because of Factions, you know? And I know that was before the Bungie acquisition.
Well,
Like
and
they've
it
been
just
working
sucks
on it.
because like we really realistically we really shouldn't know about factions. Like Naughty Dog and Sony hasn't said the words factions publicly. They just keep saying the continuation of Last of Us multiplayer or something. I think is what they
Yeah,
call
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But
So
we needed to give it a name, you know.
right.
So,
No,
uh,
I get it, and you know, like and like I said, I just really want to want somebody to break this deal, like break this deal open and show me like because like we're still led to believe like NetEase is still invested in Bungie in
yeah, which is the
$100 million,
weirdest
and
thing. Yeah.
this is their third project. So how can you have how can you have Bungie, NetEase, and Sony all having a say at the table? Like,
But so what I would say, like, so for an example, Insomniac is apparently working on Wolverine and a multiplayer game.
mm-hmm.
Spider-Man 2 single player game just released, fastest selling PlayStation
Yeah.
Studios game of all time. If you're at PlayStation or you're at Insomniac, do you go, let's make Spider-Man 3 next after Wolverine? Let's not make multiplayer game. Like let's not even waste resources on trying something new since our last multiplayer game was Fuse. You know, like you know,
I
if you want to
think
go
that
down
we'll
the Fuse
find
rabbit
out.
hole.
I think we'll truly find out how much financial trouble Bungie is in, is if, to your point, they pivot a completely different direction. If all of a sudden, like we talked about when they first bought them, all of a sudden they announce some, like we said before, some 10 or 12-hour campaign that tells a different lore story in the Destiny world. If they start spinning off and making single player or
The
co-op,
League of Legends
yeah.
thing.
You know, like if that starts happening where they're trying to make a Miles Morales or a Lost Legacy like game and get it out in 18 months or something like that, and it's a, you know, like
Cade 6,
yeah,
romance, and let's go.
So, you know, like I think that's where you'll start seeing some interesting stuff, or if you see something exclusive to Sony come from Bungie.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's
Or
where it'll
next
get weird.
PlayStation showcase, they put a big 3 on the screen that says Destiny 3. Then it's like, shit.
Yeah.
They did it. But that's all I have for news. You want to hit what's delayed?
You have Final Shape and Marathon written on here, so
Yeah.
I mean, Bungie does their this week at Bungie or whatever on Thursdays. That's when I would expect them to say something.
Is it happening this week?
I don't know. Their patch notes were hella delayed, so usually their patch notes are right out at release, and
don't let go of the person that has to hit publish on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, it's bad when anytime somebody loses their job, but I just worry that they grew too fast too quick. You know?
Yeah.
So, all right, and then what we're playing and watching. So, for me, Lions were on Monday night this week. I watched them. I was working on Sunday. I ended up playing some of my last little bit of softball, like a charity, like food drive tournament on Saturday, which was taking up the majority of the day. I did get a little bit more time with Spider-Man, not as much as I want. However, I do have some time off this week, so hopefully get a little bit farther in that. I just need to, buckle down. I think I'm maybe 6 hours in at the most. So it has nothing. I'm having a great time with what I'm playing. It's just a matter of sitting down and playing it in a long enough session or short bursts of time, and I just haven't had a chance to do it. Excuse me. And we also have that League of Legends game that's coming that came out that I'm gonna try to squeeze some time in with that. I can't think of the name of it right now off the top of my head, but it's a continuation of the other one, Concordia,
Convergence.
That sounds right. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot to play, and there's been a ton of conversation this last couple of months around, like you're talking about, similar to the Destiny player base decreasing, but we've gone from like a Diablo or a Tears of the Kingdom to Diablo to Baldur's Gate 3 to Spider-Man 2 transition over the last 6 or 7 months, which is definitely affecting games like Destiny. And we're coming out of like what people are arguing is like, they're comparing 2023 to like 2013 and 2018 and to 2011 or 9, I think, in terms of like greatest years of gaming. And it's on the heels of like just awful layoffs all over the gaming industry.
Yeah, it's a very crazy. It's like one of the better years for video game releases, but one of the worst years for the video game industry.
Yeah. So what is 2025, 2026 going to look like when you don't have any of these people making games? Like
you're going to have a lot of fucking great indie games.
Yeah.
Like probably
So
like
we're gonna, and it's just so, so weird right now. Like I was having this conversation with one of my coworkers about he's trying to find, games that he wants to play, and I'm getting to the point now where I'm kind of asking him like, hey, like we just talked about, like, have you played Guacamelee? Have you played Nobody Saves the World? Have you played Hades? Have you played Transistor? Those are great games that you can get done in 8 or 10 hours. I think this Assassin's Creed Odyssey style or Valhalla games are just wearing on people, like dramatically wearing
they
on
are,
people.
yeah. And I think the live service games are kind of hitting their
Yep.
mark too, in terms of like, oh, let me grind out this battle pass the next 30 days. Like
hmm
people, I think,
I
are
don't
kind
even
of
care
tired of
about
that
that when I
too.
play Destiny now. For the most part, it's just hanging out with 3 to 6 of my buddies, doing something in the game. And I think this season is supposed to end in 5 weeks, and I'm at like level 71, and I'm just like, okay, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, those last
Yeah,
10 levels, I don't need those little material things. I have enough of them. It's like,
yeah.
so it's just everything's in this weird spot. Like, like even you as a player, like you're not grinding Overwatch every other day or every 3 or 4 days
I haven't
anymore
played
like you used to.
Overwatch in
Yeah,
like 6 months. Yeah,
yeah. So
I
I
haven't played
mean,
any multiplayer game
yeah.
in a while.
And at this point in time, I don't even. I mean, yes, Destiny is a multiplayer game, but Destiny's, like I've always talked about, Destiny's like my poker night.
Yeah,
I hang out with 5 or 6 of my buddies for 2 or 3 hours, and that's really all I play. I raid once a week on Destiny, and I mess around with it. Like if I have like an hour to spare, or if I get my lazy butt up, out of bed, and I get tired of watching SportsCenter at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
yeah.
So that's kind of what it's turned into for me. So, but yeah, still kind of going through Burn Notice with Ange. Like we're I think on season 4, like halfway through season 4 or something like that. So I think I started to see where the where like USA Network decided that like, hey, we're gonna keep this show, and I saw the quality of or this is where that digital film transition happened in like 2013, 2014.
Yeah, yeah.
Like stuff looks a lot better in the show now. So, but yeah, that's same thing. Like 45 minutes while we're eating dinner, like Burn Notice is on, and then I end up watching football or something like that. So but yeah, like even like half joking, half serious. Like you literally sent me that humble bundle. Like here, fill your ROG up, you'll be good.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as I saw him, like he probably already has Gotham Knights, but he doesn't have all these other
Yeah,
games.
at least not on PC. So
Yeah, exactly.
So.
For me, so I platinum Spider-Man 2. It took me about like 30 hours. Spider-Man 2, like I want to say, like story-wise, I think the game is damn near perfect. I did have some bugs, mess up some boss battles, which were kind of annoying. With the story being like damn near perfect for me, I still would say I probably like the first one better just because it was the first one, which I know is like I feel like it's a weird statement to say, but I think most people would agree. Like that first time you play a game or you're introduced to, especially hadn't been a really good Spider-Man game in forever.
Yeah.
So like why I like gameplay wise, it's a more variety, more diverse gameplay style. There's a lot more features in it. I think I like the first one just a little bit more, but I'm talking about like the first one I gave a 10 out of 10. This one again, it's like 9.5 out of 10.
Is it in your top 3 for game of the year this year?
It is probably my game of the year as of right now.
Okay.
And I don't think there's many games I haven't played yet that could top this.
Okay.
Unless you count me watching Baldur's Gate 3, but like I'm not going to count Baldur's Gate 3. So like it's fantastic. The unlocks and stuff were really cool. I still think they did Miles dirty, and seems like the internet agrees with me with Finals his final suit, because they always like there's always a new suit towards the end game. But for the most part, I loved it. I can't wait to talk spoilers with either you, Dave, or if you're not able to finish it.
I'll get on it. I promise.
Yeah, just so I can just dive into some of that story stuff. Especially, I would love to hear your input as someone who doesn't know the lore that deeply.
Yeah.
To see what you thought about it, as opposed to me, who, it's Insomniac's lore. Like it's Insomniac made their own lore and their own story. So like I like what Insomniac did. But I would like to hear someone's perspective who doesn't have that background of like what they changed or not.
I know you told me. I know you told me it's coming, and I'm close. But I just need that. I need that point. I need that story plot point that grabs me and holds on to me. And I just haven't got there yet. It's happened with Horizon, both Horizons that happened where I'm like, holy crap, like this is great. It had not happened with Ragnarok, and I haven't gone back yet. And I don't know what I did or didn't do, or didn't get to yet. But I will get to it with Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah. As someone who didn't finish Ragnarok, who just hit a point where like I'm done with this game, like
Hmm.
Spider-Man 2, once it hits a certain point, you're like I'm finishing this game
Yeah.
tonight, sort of thing. Especially if you're not obsessed with like trophies. I got obsessed with trophies, so I kind of dragged it along,
Yeah,
like
but I feel like
literally.
if I want to, I can double back. Like I've done that with the
Oh
other
no,
ones, right?
you
Yeah.
100% couldn't like double
Yeah.
back, but it was just funny though because the last mission
I should really
and
go
you
over
were
here and make sure that she's safe. You know.
no, basically that's how it
Yeah.
was, where it's like literally the last mission was like this, there's like a point where if I get within a certain radius, I'm going to trigger that final battle or cutscene, and I was just trying to buy whatever time I could to just avoid doing that.
Hmm.
And just having the character just be like, "Oh man, I really should figure out what's going on," and it's just
Yeah.
like, "Shut the fuck up!" Like we're gonna go stop this petty criminal. Like we're not gonna stop the evil. Other than that, went over to a friend's house, played some fighting games, Dragon Ball Fighters Z or whatever it's called, and Soul Calibur 6. So played like probably like 5 hours of fighting games, passing the controller between like 4 or 5 people, which was really good because I don't play fighters that often. Kind of made me want to pick up some more fighters, so I might pick up like Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 on the PS4 because I had that on PS3 but not on PS4. So did that for a couple hours. Me and Sarah have been watching horror movies because we're in Halloween season. I dropped something, and saw the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Streamed it, thank God, because TikTok made it sound like it was a nightmare to see in theaters because kids are in the TikTok phase now and just
Hmm.
want to shout memes at the screen. Five Nights at Freddy's. It was okay. It's a PG-13 horror movie. You can tell it was made for kids, so it was fine for what it was. But we watched like a whole bunch of other horror movies last uh, couple days, so
Oh yeah,
a
and
lot of
yeah. I
random
had trick or
stuff.
treating in the snow in there too, by the way, with the
Oh
old.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That just made like not doing anything so much easier
Yeah.
on Halloween, just seeing all the snow. But yeah, just a bunch of random horror movies. A lot of Spider-Man 2. Though I kind of have this point now after I beat Spider-Man 2, like I haven't touched a game controller outside of playing fighting games with friends.
Hmm.
Like I finished Spider-Man 2 Friday, played some fighting games with some friends Friday, but I haven't touched a video game controller since Friday,
Yeah.
basically.
Well, I mean, when you go
Uh,
through what 30 hours of gameplay and whatever today is the November in 11 days, like
yeah. So like I'm hoping like I can find something. I probably will be picking up Assassin's Creed just
yeah,
because I should be into that based on everything.
yeah,
And I want to pick up Alan Wake 2, but I want to replay Alan Wake 1. But I just don't know if that would burn me out. I don't want
right,
to Horizon myself like you did, Dave.
yeah,
There's more games that I still want to try, especially as I like to put together my Game of the Year list
hmm,
for me. But that is it.
all right. So no questions from the community. Again, we don't always have to ask for them. If you come up with something, you hear us say something, you think we say something stupid, like let us know and we'll talk about it. We'll have a discussion around it. I'd really be curious about what people think of my thoughts on what's going on at Bungie, or as well as Michael's thoughts on is Destiny not the creme de la creme that it used to be, and should Bungie like fully move on from it. Um,
Yes.
I would love to hear what you guys what you guys think, and again, like anybody losing their job is terrible. But I don't want anybody to think that. Like I hope that those people can find things that fit their talents and their abilities and their ability to support their family and themselves. I never want to see anybody do that. I saw a lot of my friends go through that the last 6 months, and it hurt me enough as it was. And these people I don't even know, but they work on a project that I do have a passion for and do care about. So I do care about their well being and their jobs. And there are people that I know that work for that studio or that worked for that studio.
Yeah.
So it's just not a great day in any game industry studio that loses people ever. But I also just preface it with a small thing: is I don't think unionization could fix this. So,
It can save some of the things.
Yeah.
It can save the exit strategies
Yeah.
for how laying people off
Right.
works.
Correct.
But it won't prevent layoffs from happening, but
Right.
it will at least prevent how
Yeah.
people are split.
Yeah. So, but yes, we would love to hear your thoughts on any of those things, and are there other events that are going on in the gaming world. You can send them to us on Twitter at Digital Days Pod. You can send them to Michael at the First MJC. You can send them to myself at Good Dave Hunt. You can join our Facebook group. You can join our Discord server. We can have conversations around that. We have a Patreon. All that stuff is linked in the show notes. You guys can check all that stuff out there. Join the community. Join the conversations. You know, pitch games to me that I should play or that I could play with you guys, because if I'm not going to keep playing Destiny, I don't know if I am or not, and we'll see what's going on with that. For the record, I have not pre-ordered Final Shape either, because I usually lately don't pre-order stuff until 48 hours before it comes out. Did the same thing with Spider-Man. So,
Actually, expansions. I just don't see the benefit in
yeah.
pre-ordering expansions.
So, but yeah, I would love to hear everybody's thoughts about where we're at in the gaming world. So I hope everyone had a great Halloween if you celebrated it or had kids, and hopefully you were warmer than I was. But you can you can check us out and join our communities. Click the links in the show notes, and I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.
Audacity is stopped.
All right.
Thanks, Curry. Appreciate you hanging out. All right, those of you that are still in chat, appreciate you guys hanging out and chatting it up, and remember to subscribe to YouTube as well. You can watch it through there. So hope everyone has a great night. Talk to y'all later.